everyone and welcome back to this channel. In today's video I would like to go into the world and talk about some books which are set all around the world. Now obviously I can't talk about books set in every single country of this planet because that would be kind of a hard job to do and it would be a very long video, which I'm not interested in doing. Instead, I have selected on a few titles which are personal favorites and which are titles that are set all around the world but not all the world. I personally love reading books set in different countries, and I'm not saying that everyone should do this. It's perfectly fine if you enjoy reading books set in one specific country, your own country for instance, or in just those 2 or 3 countries that you normally read about. That's perfectly fine. I'm just saying that if I read books that are all set in America, I do find myself wanting to read something else about different cultures and different people, and also I feel like those kinds of books provide me with such a wide horizon. What I'm trying to say is this is what I personally love to do, and if you're like me, I have here some recommendations for books that you might want to pick up because they are at least set in different countries besides from the America and the Great Britain, which I think are the 2 countries that I read the most books from. I'm wearing my Paris hoodie because I'm going traveling with you guys, so I thought it would be appropriate, and also it's super cold and very windy outside, so this is very appropriate and I feel so comfortable. I could put on the actual hoodie for this video. I don't know if this is the good look for me. So since I'm wearing this hoodie, why not start in France? Because I keep talking about it, I keep telling you I haven't read it yet, so it's going to happen, but I don't know when. Anyway, the book I'm talking about is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, and as you can see, it's a huge novel, it's a classic, and I know it's going to be a beautiful story about this prisoner called Jean Valjean and his escape into the world and how he tries to go back to society. I think that's what it's about. But I haven't read it yet. I'm looking forward to it at some point, but it's not a book that, I don't know, it's just intimidating, but it is a gorgeous novel and I do see myself reading it at some point in my life. Now let's go to Italy. This next novel I have read and I loved, absolutely loved, and that is Augustus by John Williams. John Williams is, according to me, a phenomenal writer. He writes so different novels. He has written a western, he has written a very everyday life story, and then he has written this one, which is an epistolary story told through the life of Augustus. So it takes place in Rome, and it's just a beautiful piece of work that gives you an insight into that contemporary society of his time. I loved it. I didn't think I would love it as much as I did, but there is something about this book that speaks to me, and it also seems to speak to a lot of other people who have loved this one as well. I have never been to Canada, but I really want to go someday. Also because of this novel, which is The Orenda by Joseph Boyden. I have read 2 novels of this author, this one and another one called, I will find it. Here it is, Through Black Spruce. Now this one is a contemporary novel set in Canada also, but this one was the novel that spoke to me the most because it's set in Canada, but it's set in 1640, and it's about these Indians and these tribes trying to communicate through kidnapping and murder and revenge, and it's just a beautiful piece of work, a very harsh story about how they communicated back in those days. And when I say communicate, I'm not saying talking, but how they lived in this constant circle of revenge and murder. And it's just a beautiful, insightful story that tells about the old society of Canada, but also about people in general. The next book takes us to Asia, more specifically Japan. I had to include Haruki Murakami in this video because I love his books, and for this one I've decided to go for one of my favorite books of his, and that is Norwegian Wood. This is a love story and that's all it is, but it's beautiful. Some strange things happen, but they are entwined with beautiful stories about everyday life in Japan, and that's exactly one of the reasons why I love this author. He gives you such a beautiful and rare insight into what it's like to live in Japan, what Japanese culture is, how they live, how they eat, how they think. It's beautiful and I love him for that. So this is my favorite, or one of my favorites of his. I have never been to Japan, but this author kind of makes me want to go someday. Let's stay in Asia. The next book I haven't read yet, and it's actually part of the book haul, which will be going up on my channel at some point in the future whenever I have received all of the books. But this book is set in India and it is called A Fine Balance by Rohinton Mistry. I have heard that this is an epic novel about young people in India and their families, and that's really all I know, but I can't wait to find out what else it's about and whether it will steal my heart as it has done to so many other people. I also haven't read that many books set in India. I think I've watched quite a few movies set in India, but not read books, so this is something I'm looking very much forward to. Let's go to Africa, more specifically Nigeria. Now, I could have gone for Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, the author of, for instance, Americana, but I decided to go for another book which isn't quite as well known, even though it is still huge, I think. But it's set in Nigeria and it's just as beautiful as Chimamanda's books are. I'm talking about Under the Udala Trees by Chinelo Okparanda. This book is about a very young girl who lives with her mother in Nigeria, and she realizes that she is gay, but her mother has the hardest time accepting that. She does, after all, live in a time and in a society in which that's very hard to accept. I won't tell you what happens to her, but this is the main plot, and it's a book that blew me away. I loved it, and it's just a beautiful book that also gives you an insight into Nigerian society and way of thinking. Now, this video wouldn't feel right if I didn't include a book from my own country, which is of course Denmark. I've included a book which came out last year, and I'm not sure that it's been published in English. I'm pretty sure it hasn't yet, actually. So you will have to wait until that happens, which hopefully happens in the future, because this book is amazing, and that is Blackhead by Cecil Jo Gazan. The thing that blew me away about this book is that it takes place in Aarhus, which is our second largest city in Denmark. It tells so beautiful about childhood in Aarhus, and also about Danish society, how we live and how we grow up. What happens to this girl are things that also happen to me. What she experiences are things that I could relate to, so I feel like this is truly Danish. It's a magnificent story about Rosa, who loves graffiti, and it's about her growing up and becoming this graffiti artist, and also gaining some best friends, and just growing up in the city of Aarhus, and that's it. It's hard to explain, but I loved it, and it has some scenes in it which are truly Danish and truly me, I think. And then let's skip to our neighbor country, which is Sweden, because I have here The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy by Stieg Larsson. This is the first book, and this is the Danish cover. It is a crime series, but it's one of the best crime series I've ever put my hands on. I haven't read a lot of crime, even though we are known for crime fiction here in Scandinavia, but this one I do recommend. Definitely check it out, and once you've read the 3 novels, make sure to also check out the Swedish movies, which are excellent. I have 2 more books left, and the next one takes us to Afghanistan, and that is of course Khaled Hosseini, and this is And the Mountains Echoed. Once again, it's the Danish cover, but it is out in English. A lot of people decide on Kite Runner by this author whenever they choose their favorite book of his, which I understand. That's a beautiful story. But I personally prefer this one, which was even better in my opinion. It's one that I have to reread because I don't remember too much about it, other than it's about a family living in Afghanistan, and then they are split in some way, and then it's about the child growing up. But I don't recall too much other than that, but I just remember this being beautiful. What a gorgeous story, and as I said, it's one that I have to reread. The very last novel takes us to Russia, which is one of my favorite countries to read about. I have never been there, but it's on the top of my traveling list. I really want to go to either Moscow or St. Petersburg, But this book is set in St. Petersburg, and it is The Revolution of Marina M. It's a very new release, which is about Marina, who goes through her personal revolution parallel to the Russian Revolution of 1917. This book is intricate. It comes with a lot of turns, and it also comes with a lot of layers when it comes to her life and her development. It's a beautiful story once again. Apparently this is just the first part of her life and her journey. There will be a second book out at some point in the future, but for now I think this one is gorgeous. It could definitely be read just as its own independent story. I really loved it, and it's just I keep saying beautiful, but it is a beautiful story set in St. Petersburg, and it also tells about Russian culture and Russian way of life in general. I am now out of breath after having talked for several minutes, so I need to take a break. But I really hope you enjoyed this journey with me, and that I could provide you with some new books set in different countries that you didn't already know about and haven't already read. Thank you so much for watching, and until my next video, happy reading!